You know, they're not getting McDonald's every day, they're getting steak and lobster every single day. The idea that we're feeding fish for 3 to 5 minutes is insane to me. I have never in my life put in food and expected them to finish it in 3 to 5 minutes. You know, fish are grazers, they need to graze, and that's how they survive in the wild, is they're looking for food all day long. So my 3 to 5 minutes, I had a 0. 30 to 50 minutes is how I like to feed. And then I like to feed 2 to 3 times a day. So today we're going to talk about the foods I've created and why I created them. Alright, first of all we're going to do these guys right here. They are about almost ready to breed. They're just under a year old, but I have seen some breeding activity. And the reason why I think they're breeding so early is because the foods they're feeding. They're getting nothing but top quality foods. And yes, you pay a little bit more, but no fillers, no crap, no garbage. It's all 100% good food. So that's why they're growing fast, and that's why they're breeding early. Alright, so let's do the bell. So we just put in a blackworm cube, stuff that in. It's important to stuff it because you want to get those worms that come out the end there. You can kind of see they're popping out. And then what I do is for the optimal growth, so you can see there's different sizes of food. Now, if you're feeding fry, you go to the bottom and you get the fine stuff. If you're feeding these guys, you want to shake it, and all that big stuff's going to come to the top, and that's what you want to grab for them. And they've already eaten pretty good, so they're just going to get 1 scoop with a blackworm. And then we just put the cork in, feed. And check them out. Okay, the bell was designed for even growth. I wanted to make sure that even, like you see the wild heckle in the back there, he kind of stays out of everything. He's a little bit smaller, but he'll get fed by all the scraps falling off, and that's kind of the idea. You know, the most dominant fish are going to be up front. Now these guys have been together since they were little, so they kind of work together to get this food out of this bell. But you'll see that some will come up and some will leave, and then they'll kind of just pick at it. But as they're picking at it, it's kind of shooting through the tank, and that's kind of how we want to feed fish. The idea that we're feeding fish for 3 to 5 minutes is insane to me. I have never in my life put in food and expected them to finish it in 3 to 5 minutes. You know, fish are grazers, they need to graze, and that's how they survive in the wild, is they're looking for food all day long. So my 3 to 5 minutes, I had a 0. 30 to 50 minutes is how I like to feed. And then I like to feed 2 to 3 times a day. So they're not getting an exact replica of the wild, but it's as close as I can come. Now the bell basically helps so they don't bloat, okay? And I don't feed any bloodworms. I don't even feed freshwater shrimp. I feed the saltwater, so the mysis shrimp. And the reason I do that is just because I can't trust these companies that they say they're parasite free, but in the past I've had issues, mostly bloating, and that's more of an overfeeding problem. But this is kind of designed to stop the bloating and making sure everybody in the tank's getting food, so we get even growth through every fish. The mysis is awesome, so it's really the only frozen food I feed in my room now is the frozen mysis shrimp. Just so I have no concerns about ever having to treat for parasites once I've treated all my fish. So it's really enjoyable to watch the bell because they have to work for the food, right? But not only that, if you look at the little particles starting to spread out all over the tank, that's the idea. Now they've just eaten about 2 hours ago, so they're not going to be real hungry, but that's kind of the point, is now they're going to feed on this thing for the next hour or 2, and that's kind of how I want it. Alright, so I'm going to feed these guys. There's not many left. They've been selling out pretty quick. These are what I'm selling of the coupon. But I'm going to talk about the Daily Delight freeze-dried and then the Daily Delight frozen. Okay, so on this I've lowered the price dramatically. It's under $12, and that offset will cover the cost of what you have to buy at the grocery store to make this product. So if you have a bunch of tanks, you need to look into this, because you'll get a pound probably for under 20 bucks now. It's just your labor, and if you want quality food and make it last in a huge fish room, this is the way to go. Alright? So what I like about this Daily Delight is let it thaw just slightly, and I put them in these containers, and then you just kind of stick it to the glass. And by sticking to the glass, you activate it. But not just that, it'll guarantee to sink. So they'll chew on that for, you know, a good 10-15 minutes, but I want these little guys to grow. There we go. Now, with the freeze dried, the Daily Delight freeze dried, okay? Take out a cube or a couple cubes, and then if you want to feed the freeze dried, there's a few ways. You can do against the glass, so we can do that too. You can get that activated, and that'll fall, right? It's going to fall almost instantly. But by activating it, you're making sure it's going to drop down, so they're going to eat it. Okay? Now, a great way to feed this food too is to crumble it. Really crumble it up. Small, tiny bits, and they'll just chew on this. Alright? So it will sink slowly. And for Discus, that's great. You know, they'll eat it off the top, but it'll also sink real slow.